right, folks. You have gone and done it. You've really messed up. I hate to say it. You just don't know how big of a mistake you made. You went and found yourself listening to yet another episode of Hank Trucker. HankTrucker.com reports. God help you, folks, because what's gonna come out of my mouth in the next hour, I don't even know. I really don't. I'm just kidding you, folks. I am so glad to have you here. Whether you made a mistake or not, please stay around. Welcome. You are listening to the Hank Trucker channel and the HankTrucker.com report. Episode 3. We're up to 3 already, folks. I can't believe it. Today's date is November 3rd, 2019. The title of today's show is Why? Uh-oh. Why? Am I going to say it? Am I going to say it out loud? I don't know. Am I? Oh, there it is. Why I quit Landstar. Okay, I'm live, and I've got no choice but to talk about it now, folks, because I officially ended my relationship with Landstar at the end of January of this year, 2019. It's taken me this long to come back to the channel and talk about it. Now, I knew when I came back to this channel and I started broadcasting again, or started to try to get back into YouTubing with my channel, that I was going to have to address this. But I'll be honest with you, I stayed away from it for a long time, and we're going to get into the reasons why. So, yep, like I said, the title of today's show is Why I Quit Landstar. Subtitle: The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So that's what we're going to talk about today, folks. We're going to leave the news out of it because I'm really liking the idea of making this about current events in trucking as it relates to drivers, owner-operators, and small fleet owners. Not. If you're a mega carrier, listen because you want to keep touch with the enemy. I'm kidding. We're all partners in this. No, I'm not. You're the enemy. Anyway, so today we're not going to be talking about much of the news at all. And always, folks, thanks for subscribing. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Give me a positive comment, a negative comment, or even better would be constructive criticism, folks. Letting me know what I could do to make the show better, what you'd like to hear about, what you'd like to discuss. One of my goals is to be able to get callers calling me live. I'm trying to figure out the logistics on that. Let me tell you, it's taken me months just to get to the point where I can put the sign up that says Why I Quit Landstar and also be streaming at the same time. I built the computer I'm streaming from right now, but when it comes to this live streaming, and it's just a whole new world. It really is. So once again, thanks for subbing, sharing, commenting, good, bad, or ugly. Well, that's the subtitle of today's show. But please sub. But hit the bell to get all the notifications because, I want you to see them because it's going to help I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to help the channel grow. I would like to get to the point where I can actually have this channel support me and I go out there and become a ambassador for truck drivers, especially drivers wanting to become owner-operator drivers. And talking to the other companies, getting the real deal, getting the real scoop. And let me tell you, from my own personal experience, I did do that with Landstar, and I'm going to share those experiences with you. My idea for my next show is going to be a review. This is kind of funny and means who do I think I am, Mr. Big Pants here? I've got all of 400 subscribers. But I'm going to do a review of the owner-operator/driver YouTube channels out there. Now, when I do it, I may miss you. If I miss you, let me know, and we'll do another show with a whole new group. There's a few guys that irritate the heck out of me, but I still watch them, so they must be interesting. There's a few guys that I don't agree with at all about some of the things they say, but they must have something to offer because they're successful in doing it. So, whether I personally get along with them on the on the YouTube channel or not is irrelevant. It's what do they have to offer us, right? And like I say, folks, this is not my channel. This is your channel, which makes it our channel. If we can grow it together, maybe we'll see where we can go from here. You never know. But anyway, back to the topic of the day, why I quit Landstar. And I'm going to be straight up with you, folks. Why I quit Landstar, it was very difficult for me to do this show. More than I even knew. Because I've tried a couple times already to do the format where I do a video and I edit it. But I found that gives me an out. I can stop talking about it. I can get up. I can go in the kitchen and get something to drink and sit down and watch a Netflix or go to work or something. I don't have to face it. But I had to face it here. If it sounds like it's something that hurts, it does. It does. But that's why I'm here, folks. I want to talk about that with you, and I want to share my experience with that. I'm going to be straight up with you. It is one of the biggest reasons I quit. Lifestyle. And I'm going to go through these one by one. This is not going to be let's trash Landstar session. Let's make that clear up front. There's good, there's bad, there's ugly, there's room for improvement. But my God, isn't that the truth about each and every one of us? Of course it is. Some of the most decent people I ever spoke to and met were through Landstar. And I mean that sincerely. And some of the nastiest, dishonest, lying scumbuckets I ever met were with Landstar. And I think that comes with the territory because with Landstar, think of it as a giant pile of cash and everybody surrounding it trying to get through all the maze that's put around it to get your piece of that cash. And when that's what's happening, you're going to deal with ultra competitiveness, downright thievery, and all the way at the other end of the spectrum, decent people who do things they don't have to do because that's who they are. That's how they truly operate and believe. So, I want to get into it. But strictly speaking, I quit Landstar for lifestyle issues. My personal situation is unique to me. It's not unique to you. Some of the issues that I describe here tonight may apply to you. They may not. If they don't, please understand that I'm not trying to say that one size fits all here. Okay, and I think we all know that. We're all at the age now where we all understand that we have to put on our big boy pants and our big girl pants and accept responsibility for our actions. And with actions come consequences, good, bad, and indifferent. So, one of the things I'll start with is Arizona. Arizona, just outside of Phoenix and Mesa, is where I lived when I bought my truck and leased on with Landstar. I had a great job there in Arizona as a shuttle driver where I'd go to work every night at a warehouse that they distributed flooring. And I was the only shuttle driver they had. And they had some city drivers and they had an over-the-road driver. But I was the only shuttle driver. And basically, I started when I wanted. Every night between 7 p.m. and sometimes as late as 11 p.m. I'd get kind of fussed out if I did that. But I worked there a little over a year, and I never had a sit down with a boss or anything about anything that happened. They paid me well. They did not offer benefits. I drove a brand new, rider lease truck. All I had to do was roll it through the maybe only half the time, roll it through a rider at night to get fuel. I'm a bit of a clean freak. The guy that would drive it during the day, I think back on this was my only problem. And I would let it actually bother me. He would drive, he was a local delivery driver, so he would go on his local delivery runs driving the highway truck. They had little city tractors, but they all wanted to drive the big highway truck. And he would do it with his gloves on. So he'd get in back and unload all this dirty stuff and get his gloves black. And God bless him. He was the nicest guy. He really was. He's probably in his early 30s, had a girlfriend, a couple kids, but he was going to drive with those gloves on. And also, a lot of the time, I think he didn't even keep the AC on, so he'd sweat quite a bit into the seat. So I always had to cover the seats every night when I came in with towels, and I had to scrub the wheel clean, because I always felt like to have the inside of the truck dirty was a sin. But he got the message one night when he'd left some McDonald's and food stuff in the cab, and I put it all in a bag, and I left it on. We all had our little desks where we kept our stuff, and I put it all in his desk. And he found it the next morning, and he never left anything else in there, and didn't say a rude word to me. Nice guy. That was the biggest problem I had there. Everybody there was super nice. I would get to the office, do a pre-trip. Most of the time, my truck would already be hooked, at least sitting in front of my trailer. I'd hook up, do a pre-trip, I'd do my paperwork, and I'd head off to Desert Center. I think that was about, I don't know, I think it was about a three-hour drive. It was about 160 miles one way. I'd head over there, and the biggest problem I'd have when I get there is the guy coming from L.A. that would meet me to swap trailers from our warehouse in L.A. Sometimes he'd be late, and oh no, I would have to sleep, or play on YouTube or something, or exercise, or meditate, or talk on the phone, gosh knows what. Anyway, then we'd swap trailers. I'd go back. I'd get out of the truck in front of the warehouse. I'd always tried to beat the traffic back into Phoenix. If I got back into Phoenix before 4 a.m., along I-10, I could beat all the morning traffic. But if it was after 4 a.m., I would get stuck all the way from the west side of Phoenix all the way to downtown where we were, right by the airport. And if you know Phoenix I-10 traffic in the morning, that was a good hour to hour and a half, depending on the day. So I always hated that. And I got paid by the run, so I wanted to get in and out of there. A perfect day for me, I'd be in and out in 7 hours. So I'm describing this to you to let you know what I was doing when I got the big idea. And it wasn't one that just came to me. I'd been thinking about it for years of buying my own truck. I like maybe some of you had watched some videos. One really comes to mind is Daniel McCarthy, Stronger by the Mile. I really liked his experience that he gave with Lone Mountain truck leasing, and I applied with Arrow Truck Leasing, and was approved, strangely enough, only to buy one truck there. They wouldn't sell me any other trucks. And I took that truck for a drive, and I could smell coolant, and it was this old Mack, and it had 50-gallon tanks on each side. They were willing to, had a fixed fifth wheel. They were willing to put an air slide fifth wheel on it, put big tanks on it. But it scared me. They did have a much better warranty, though. Their warranty included the after treatment. And it would have been there in Phoenix too, which would have been nice. But I ended up going with Lone Mountain Leasing, and my experience with them, you can see. The first truck I went and got, I didn't like, and the second one I got, it turned out to be a really good truck. It had a lot of work done, and I really liked it. So I had leased my truck from Lone Mountain Leasing. and got qualified to be with Landstar and leased on with Landstar. I bobtailed up to Reno for my orientation with Landstar the day after I bought my truck. No, that's not true. I bobtailed to Phoenix first and put all my stuff in my truck. That's right. And then the next day, I got in there and I drove up to Phoenix. Up to Reno. But anyway, and let me tell you something. The lady there, I think her name was Lisa. She had been a Landstar contractor, and then she started doing the orientations. And it's some Landstar contractors would stop in there, and I met quite a few of them. And I'd met a Landstar contractor that went in a couple of weeks before me that had bought from Lone Mountain Truck Leasing. His transmission went out on his first load out of orientation, and he called Lone Mountain about it. $6,000 later, Lone Mountain told him hey, too bad for you. You bought the truck. We told you it was yours when you bought it. So I'm going to have some things to say about that. We're going to get to it, okay? The Lone Mountain, the experience with Lone Mountain was the first they tried to sell me a truck that was pure crap, all right? And he got that, and then I still remember the service manager saying, no, I don't have time to go ride with you with that truck. And the reason he didn't have time to go ride with me with the truck he tried to sell me was he knew it was a piece of shite, okay? He knew it was a piece of shite. And how I figured out he knew that is I went out and picked a truck that hadn't been detailed yet or anything, and I did that by going down on the line and looking at like 25 trucks they had sitting there that were covered in dust, and I found one that had all new brakes. I popped the hood, and it didn't have any oil leaks or coolant leaks, and it had a lot of new parts on it, on the engine. And I told him, get that one ready, and I came back in a week. And the truck that I drove that week before, where I parked it in the parking lot, which was kind of in a weird place, like right in the middle of the parking lot, back in the service area. Well, that first truck that I had rejected was still in the same exact spot. When I asked the salesman about it, he goes, oh, yeah, we don't know what we're going to do about it. I mean, we already knew there was a problem. He kind of let it slip that they already knew there was a problem, and they tried to pass that piece of shite off on me. That tells you what kind of people you're dealing with, okay? I'm not saying they're any better or any worse than any other place that sells used trucks. But something I didn't catch, and I'm really, I didn't catch it right before I turned the truck back in, was the fact that the truck I was driving probably had 100,000 miles less than all the other trucks because it had been in a pretty bad wreck. And I didn't figure that out until the Bondo around the headlight started cracking. It was done so well that I didn't see it. Normally I would see that kind of thing. But the warranty they offer is not nearly as good as Arrow because it does not cover the after treatment, and that is the thing that gives you the problems. Now, the company that I forgot the name of the company now, but the company that gives you the warranty for the first 6 months will just contact you and try to sell you more as you approach your warranty period limit. They'll try to, what they offer you is way more coverage than what Lone Mountain offers, which is bullshit, because Lone Mountain should be warrantying those trucks as much as possible, even if it costs them more. But that's not what they're doing. I'm not going to get into the economics of a used truck dealership, but you figure my price on that truck was right at $60,000, and I figured they paid somewhere around the $27,000 range for it. So anyway, I got my truck. I went to work for Landstar. They paid me to go get my first trailer, and that was back down towards Arizona. And we're getting back into the lifestyle issues as to why I quit. I was living in Arizona at the time, and it was easy when I first started with Landstar to get on the load board and to find loads between Phoenix, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, maybe even if I go east towards straight east on 40 towards New Mexico, Albuquerque, and then back, or maybe as far as El Paso in the southern part of Texas and New Mexico, the western part of Texas. But my triangle essentially was Phoenix, L.A., Las Vegas, and for the first 3 months, that's 4 months. That's all I really did. Except in August of 2018, when late July and early August, I decided my son got a job. My 21-year-old son finished technical college and got a job with a major airline in Seattle. And I said, you know what? I've always wanted to move up there. I lived there when I was a teenager, about his age actually, and I want to go back. So let's do that. Let's let you take that job, and let's go up there. So I started taking loads from San Diego, pulling loads for an agent that had an account with IKEA, in San Diego up to Seattle, and those loads were paying between $4 and $5 per mile. I hated going to San Diego and then going all the way up I-5 because I-5 is murderous. South of Sacramento, it's just awful. A lot of times I'd end up going towards the east because of all the fires and stuff, and going up 99, and then trying to bypass I-5 as much as I could. But I just hated being in California because of the heavy regulations. I'd get pulled in no matter how much you think you get a green light in other states with that bypass or that scale pass. I'm not saying I got inspected at every scale, but I got pulled into every scale. And you get pulled into some scales in Southern California, it's just, I can take 45 minutes out of your day. Excuse me. But anyway, I started taking loads there and out of Arizona, straight up to Seattle. And the reason I did that was I really liked those lanes running up into Las Vegas from Phoenix, so if I get a load there, and then north of Las Vegas, going through Ely, along that 2-lane road, going up into Twin Falls, and then up into Boise, over into Oregon, and then up through the Tri-Cities, and then into up to 90 and shoot over to Seattle, right? It's just beautiful as I got into those higher elevations, even in the summertime, to sleep at night with the windows down. And especially the further north I got. And I really loved that run. And it was, to me, it was just an amazing drive. I found it to be Folks, I'm terribly, terribly sorry about that. Apparently, I've got a kid that just loves to stream. And that's okay. Because that gets us right back to one of the things I was talking about. And, folks, that's lifestyle issues. I was living in Arizona at the time, and I was able to go between Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Phoenix, the tri-state area, and I called that the Triangle Cities. And I was able to get home once or twice during the week as an owner-operator, as well as on the weekends for at least one day. You know what I mean? And I was still doing really well. I was still doing okay. But I started driving up to the Seattle area in late July, early August, because my son got a job in the Seattle area with an airline after graduating technical college in Mesa, Arizona. So I found an apartment. What I would do is drive up there, take a load up there, and get myself a back load, and then I'd go rent a car. And they've got a lot of cool rental options up there where you can rent just a Mercedes or something. And I ended up finding myself a decent little place north of Seattle. And so that was easy. That part was taken care of, and so I'd set myself up to move to Seattle in October. Went back to Phoenix, continued working, and when I got myself all moved up to Seattle, I faced Washington. I faced some personal challenges as a single father, with a girlfriend who didn't want to come along, and so I'm up here in the Seattle area as a single father. Now my girlfriend didn't live with me in Arizona, but she lived nearby, and it made it easy with a grown teenager and my 12-year-old at the time at home to know that he was safe and everything was fine. But there's no way I was going to go hardcore on the road for 2 or 3 weeks. And let me tell you something, the freight situation where I can get, between $2.50 and $5 a mile coming up here, depending on the freight in the lane, there's, a good chance you'll be taking 85 cent a mile freight out of here just to get out of here, or going empty, so to get back down to the freight, maybe in Salt Lake, who knows where it might be. But I didn't have the time to do that. And I'll be honest with you, when I came here, I realized, because I didn't do my research, that I was not going to do well with Landstar, and get home like I did in the Southwest. And that was 100% me dropping the ball. Has nothing to do with Landstar. So I ended my lease with Landstar, and I leased on with a local company here in the Seattle area. I say local, but they're in New Jersey, they're in San Francisco, they're wherever a port is. They do work out of ports, but they also work out of rail yards. And I got a job with them pulling containers out of rail yards. Now, I will never be able to say anything good about this company, so I'm not going to give you their name, because they just straight out lied to me. It turned out that I wasn't going to be going to Spokane every day on a round trip, taking a loaded container down there, waiting for it to be live unload, and coming back and dropping the container off, getting my new load, setting myself up to leave again the next day, which would have they were paying about $660 for that round trip. 5 days a week, that would have been sufficient for me. Okay? And that was $660 to the truck, So that would have been more than sufficient to me to meet my needs, my bills, and, I wouldn't have got rich doing it, but that would have been sufficient. Or going over to Spokane, and getting I believe they said the rate was about $1,000 to go to Spokane and back. So, I mean, that would have been sufficient to me. I would have been fine with that. I could have been home. If I was in the truck 1 or 2 nights a week, no big deal. It turned out that I was going to these railheads and just running between Seattle, Tacoma, Puyallup, which is next to Tacoma, maybe going up to Everett, maybe occasionally going up to Bellingham. And I'd have to run during the peak of the traffic. So it literally I might have to travel 30 miles, but it might take me 2.5 or 3 hours to drive those 30 miles. In the morning, maybe I'd get one run done during the day, middle day, without a lot of traffic. Then in the evening, more traffic. So, I went from the potential of $600 a day, which is what they promised, to about $300 a day, with a lot harder days, harder on the equipment, and then all these other drivers that worked for the company driving these $6,000 and $8,000 and $10,000 trucks that they just bang, they could just bang the crap out of them with these dead reliable Series 60s and N14 Cummins and what have you, and their old Freightliners and Kenworths and Pete's that they were driving. I didn't realize I had joined a company where it's a race. They didn't dispatch me to these things. Just, well, you got back there. Oh, you mean another truck already got that empty? Oh, okay. Oh, you mean another truck already picked up that load? Oh, okay. So it was really awful. And then the same company would not. I lived in Everett. I took my truck home at night. They wouldn't let me use the time of driving. I'd say, no, don't dispatch me on anything in the morning until I'm in the city, so that I wouldn't be advancing myself towards a load, and I could bobtail under an ELD exemption of personal conveyance. I was using my vehicle to take myself to the yard, and I will pick up my dispatch in person from the office, is what I said, and I'll just personally convey. Because in the morning, sometimes I'll be at 30 miles from where I live to the yard. It was 30 miles, but it was through downtown Seattle, and sometimes it would take 2 hours or 2.5 hours to do that commute. And they said, no, we're going to make you on duty. So I had to figure out a way to park my truck. So literally the second night I parked my truck, thank God they didn't steal all the tires. They left literally 4 of them on the truck. Which 4? The 4 inner drives. They stole the 2 front tires and rims and all 4 outside rims in the back. And that was where it was parked on the street right around the corner. And so they said, well, we'll let you park in our yard. I'm like, oh, how mighty decent of you. And about 7-8 days later, I came in and all my batteries had been stolen. So, if I sound frustrated with that, yeah, it was my fault, really. I should have done more research and leased on with a different company and put myself in a better situation. So, rather than having a large maintenance reserve and saving money over the summer, well, no, which I did, but I ended up blowing it all moving up here. It cost me $10,000 to move. I didn't use my truck to move. I rented a U-Haul and I did the whole thing, the first and last month's rent, the 2 dogs' deposits, the whole bit. I basically blew through my money. Now, that's not Landstar's fault, okay? So, and that's not Lone Mountain's fault. That was my fault. I wanted so bad at times to get on here and rail against Landstar, rail against Lone Mountain. But my payment was only $1,200 a month. It's not bad. That truck only broke down on me one time. And it was me, it was my fault, if I had not misdiagnosed it, I wouldn't have ended up with another breakdown. I say one time, but it came from me misdiagnosing a single problem, and that single problem ballooned into a multi-$1,000 breakdown. And what that was when I was in Dallas, after 90 days, I had to go to this thing with Landstar where I had to go and take a business class. Well, while I was there, I was bobtailing around because I used to live in Dallas and going to see my old haunts and friends, just driving my truck around, and my truck threw the belt, the main serpentine, not the main one, but the accessory serpentine, And I'm on the side of the road looking at it, and I'm going, what the hell? What I had come to in my infinite wisdom, I'd come to the conclusion that somebody at some point had put a pulley that was too narrow on one of the accessories, and that pulley would cut the belt, and somebody else had taken the belt that was designed for it and then cut it down manually so that it would fit. I'm talking about the width of the belt. Cut it down manually. They didn't make one of the right length and the more narrow width that I wanted, because it looked like to me some Swift genius at Swift had put a more narrow pulley on one of the accessories, and I think that accessory was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the AC compressor. So I buy the $70 belt. Put it on. It immediately throws that one, but shreds it along the width. Well, I end up cutting it, and it works, right? And I drive it another 1,500, 2,000 miles. Heck, maybe more than that. Another couple of weeks. It might have been 5,000 or 6,000 miles, because it wasn't until I went back up to Seattle and came back down to Idaho that I had a major issue, and I threw the belt, and it got caught up in the fan, broke a fan blade, which ended up in the radiator. And not only the radiator, it went through the frickin' radiator, and somehow part of it nicked the condenser. That's some power, folks. That is some real power. And then it also cracked a filter housing. The clear fuel filter housing, the one you can look at and see, because of shrapnel damage, I guess. God, I don't even know. And so, that was on me, because you know what the problem really was? The problem was the idler arm and the idler pulley assembly. The bearing inside there had failed. And I'm looking at it just assuming somebody made a bonehead error, and it was me that was making the bonehead error. And so right at the time that I was lowest on my funds is when I had the biggest repair bill. And so right around $4,200 later, I'm looking at a checkbook that's got like $600 in it, and almost 2 weeks down because of parts needing to be ordered, and this and that, and me arguing with people about prices and that, and trying to find different shops. Ended up at Freightliner in the long run. Anyway, not only did I have to pay that money, but I also, the charges at Landstar don't stop. Your weekly nuts about $220 a week to be, for your insurance, and you're paying back for your plate and paying back, what you owe Landstar each week is about $220, or at least it was for me. And then I also had my insurance through them, my collision, everything, all the insurance was through them. Anyway, and then I had my personal savings, which I did not want to touch. I was loath to touch, but I did, and I used that to move. And all the time I took off moving, I wasn't making money. And by the time I got up here, I had some personal issues. And I'm going to tell you that things snowballed. And I didn't react well to stress. And I didn't do as well as I could. Okay? Now, that's just me talking about me and the issues I faced. So, it's too late to make a long story short. But to make a long story a little bit shorter, I'll say that I leased on with that other company in January, and I was out of there by March. And I called Lone Mountain, and Lone Mountain Truck Leasing, and it turns out that they were able to come to my house, get the truck. The only thing I didn't like was it left in perfect condition, and they tried saying that the extensions between the back of the sleeper that are the vertical extensions, the arrow extensions that give it the aerodynamic look that go past the sleeper. Well, they tried telling. I think the driver must have hit something, backed into something, or he needed a part for his truck. Who knows what? But he tried telling Lone Mountain that was missing when he took the truck. It's funny because I literally filmed him leaving, driving away with the truck with the arrow extensions still in place, and he tried telling them it was completely missing. So it obviously it got damaged. He unbolted it, or he just took the part for his own use, whatever the case might have been. But it turns out that it's funny when you showed them the video, they're like, "Oh, I guess you don't have to pay for that." But it turned out that I didn't have to pay Lone Mountain a penny because Lone Mountain sold the truck for several $1,000s more than I owed at that point. And so that was good. So I owe them zero money. It doesn't mean I don't have a repo on my credit. I do, but I have a $0 owed repo. So that happened, and that that's what happened with me. But we're also gonna talk about the choices I made, and I made some good choices, folks. The truck I chose, I didn't take the first truck that came my way. This is important if you're going out to do this, that you really be it cost me, I'm going to estimate that it cost me $3,000 to make that choice not to take that truck. It literally cost me $3,000. And you'll say, why? Well, I worked my other job right up until the Friday before I left to go from Phoenix to Las Vegas to pick up the truck that they had reserved for me. And my pay was right around $1,100 a week. I brought home just under $1,000 a week. So there's $1,000 I give up for the next week, right? And then there's also no orientation pay, no mileage pay at the end of the week after orientation. Orientation's only 2 days, and no revenue coming in, right? So I go back home and I wait, and I come back. So it was easily a $3,000 choice to reject that first truck. Okay, the second truck I picked, I'm going to tell you something. I wanted to be able to trash the truck, but I can't. I loved that truck. She started up great. She was super reliable. It was smooth. And let me tell you something. It was way faster than it should have been for a Swift 10-speed. Well, I had it converted to a 13, so I had a little bit more on top. But Lone Mountain did convert it for free to a 13-speed. And I didn't have any problems with that. When I took it into W.W. Williams for the dyno, they told me about all the parts that they themselves had replaced for Swift when it was a Swift truck. And Freightliner was able to tell me about the parts they replaced. It had a lot of significant work done to it. So it was, I'm talking about a turbo, some seals in the back that cost, where they have to pull the entire transmission out, new clutch, what is it? The EGR cooler. What is the one where it leaks fuel? The injector cups. The injector cups had been replaced, and it had a recent top end. What do they call that? They do the overhead. It had that done. The adjustment on that. I'm talking in the last 30,000 miles. So it ran great. Oh, and it had all brand new brakes and a couple of new brake cans. And I'm talking on the front as well. Combine that with the new tires that Lone Mountain put on it. And the fact that when I don't know if they do this with all trucks, but when they reprogrammed my truck, I made it clear to them I didn't want a speed limit. So as far as I know, I quit trying to figure out the top speed one day when I got bobtailing. When I got up close to 100 miles an hour. To me, that was, I think I was getting close to the RPM limit at that point. I didn't want to know. I think I only did that once, so don't hate me. Okay, I had to see. It was over 90. That's all I remember. I hit 88, then I saw 92 on the GPS, and I said, okay, that's enough. But I always had the speed there to get around somebody that was. We've met the guys. that slow down on the hills, and then you go around them, and they're going to take their company 70-mile-an-hour truck right up to 71 on the hill. They might even put it in neutral, assholes. Oops, I don't want to say bad words on this channel. I think it does something to your ratings. Anyway, arse holes. Had the speed to get around people. The truck was a great choice. I think I would probably go with OTR leasing now because they offer a better warranty than Lone Mountain Truck Leasing. Lone Mountain Truck Leasing, like all truck sales places, have scummy salespeople, scummy finance people, crappy, scummy people like that. But that's on the sales side. The people that manage the loans, they can only do what they can do. They don't hate you. They have a job to do. Their job is to make that loan perform because they want that loan to perform because they're going to sell the loan to somebody else. That's how they make their money, folks. They can't sell a loan to somebody else if you're a guy that's late from day one. And you're always calling and skipping payments because they have to put that in the record. No matter how much you try not to, they don't want to. They have to because they can't in good conscience. There's rules against fraud. They can't sell the loan to another company that's not performing well. They have to tell and the other company's going to be like, well, I don't want that loan. That loan's not performing. So, anyway, that's neither here nor there. So the financing, that's $1,200 a month. I think I paid, because I went to Landstar, I got a break on the down payment. I think it was like $3,800 down. I gave the truck back. I should have got. I would have got they would have made a payment for me at 6 months, but I think it wasn't at 6 months. They did make that payment for me. So the month after they make the payment for me is when I started telling them I wanted to get rid of the truck, and then they said no, you should keep it. And that's when I changed companies and yada yada yada. But then I ended up getting rid of it anyway, just short of a year after I got it. But the company I leased with, I can't say it was a bad choice. I'm not going to trash them because they're no better or no worse than other people. That's really what it comes down to. I think I might have gone with OTR leasing if I did it again. There's moments I want to go do it again, but I'm biting my tongue. I'm not going to say that I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I could have done worse. Let's talk about the poor choices I made. Capital. Like I said, it was $3,800 down. I had about $10,000 in that I was willing to put into the company. That is the trucking company that I started. And my personal savings was probably about that as well. So I probably had $20,000 to my name. And then I paid $3,800 out of that $10,000 for my down payment. So I probably had about $6,000 left. That week left me even lower. That I have to come back for a different truck. That hurt me even more than I know. All right, so now the company I leased with is also a poor choice. Why? Because I probably should have gone to somebody that had a better warranty. I just said they're good, right? And I'm not going to trash them. Well, there's good and there's bad, right? And I'm going to say the truck I financed was a bad choice. Why do I say that? Not so much the truck that I financed, but I shouldn't have financed the truck. I should have paid cash for a truck. And I wouldn't have had that pressure of making that payment. The personal choices I made. That contributed a lot to me quitting Landstar. If I had stayed in Phoenix, I wouldn't have taken almost 2 weeks off to move, which was essentially, it did ruin 2 weeks, which combined with another 2 weeks of a breakdown that I caused. That's a month off. I want you to imagine how much revenue that is that you don't generate Not only do you not generate it, you have to still pay all your bills. I have a car payment. I have a truck payment. I have insurance. I have car insurance. I have medical insurance. I have a child. I also have a 13-year-old at home. All those things that go along still has to go out the window, right out the door. Bad personal choice. So the area country to run and the lanes. So let's say you live in southern Georgia. You're going to know that area really well, right? And you're probably going to go get your truck for the first time and run that area. And I suggest you do that and you stay with that for the first year. I should have not left Phoenix for the first year because I knew that area. I knew where to run. I knew how to get on the. I was already talking to agents on the load board. Finding agents that would work with me, finding good loads. Let me tell you. So I can tell you what they are. You're going to run ice cream cones out of Flagstaff, but you're going to unload the truck yourself. But you're going to be paid really well to do it. And they're ice cream cones. They're not heavy. Windows. They're going to be multi-stop loads. And they're secured to the sides of the trailer. You don't do that. They're already loaded when you pick them up. But you got to push them to the back of the trailer. It can be hot in the summertime. It's physical work. But the company comes out there and helps you. And they pay really well. Ice cream cones and windows. So the ice cream cones are coming out of Flagstaff. And they're usually going up somewhere to California. Who knows where they're going. Washington, Idaho, Nevada. Multi-stop loads. Going to usually grocery warehouses. The windows are going to go to window distributors in different cities. It could be Salt Lake, it could be LA, it could be San Francisco, it could be Reno, but they're going to pay good. And those are coming out of Prescott, Arizona. The loads of strangely enough, this is weird. I don't understand how it works this way, but empty Coca-Cola cans coming out of Phoenix all the way up to Coke, all the way out to Coke in Dallas, Texas. That's just weird, but it pays good. It's a light load and it pays like $2.50 a mile to the truck. Anyway, excuse me, on and off. It's easy on and off. But I could tell you load after load after load like that. IKEA loads out of San Diego going up to Seattle. That pays so good you can go back empty and get another one right away. Or insecticide hazmat loads coming out of southern Arizona on I-8 going towards into Utah and Idaho. Those loads were not that heavy because it was never a full truckload, and they paid well, and it was hazmat. And you got to drive some beautiful country. And you have to have a willingness. So, like I told you, I know all those areas, right? You know your areas. You're a Dallas-based guy or gal. You know where you're going to drive out of Dallas. Heck, if I lived in Dallas, so I know that I could drive Dallas, Houston, Oklahoma City, El Paso, Odessa, Pecos, maybe the east, but I don't have to that much. I could stay in Texas, maybe go to Oklahoma occasionally, Amarillo. I could make a living in Texas with Landstar. I know I could. I could do well. And I could be home on the weekends, and we're going to talk about agents, the good, the bad, and the ugly here in just a minute. So I'm not saying it can't be done, and I don't want to discourage you. You just listen to the mistakes I made, and that's why it's hard for me to come on here and talk about this, folks, because they're mistakes that I made. I straight out, I effed up on a few things. And I have nobody to blame but myself. I take full responsibility for what I've done. And let me tell you something. We're going to talk about what I would do differently if I do it again. I'm not sure I'm going to go back into owner-operator, but I've still got the itch. I feel it. It's there. It didn't go away. But I would do a few things differently. Let's talk about what I loved about Landstar. The load board. I loved... this is... I didn't know how much I loved it until I left Landstar and went with this that crappy little company in Seattle, moving containers out of the rail yards. The idea was that they would dispatch me and tell me what to do. And they treated me like I was a company driver. I'm like, what? I didn't like that at all. But Landstar, I'd get on the load board, I'd look at loads, and I would call agents. You have to get on the phone. You're not going to reserve these loads online. You got to get on the phone and talk to them. And let me tell you something. When you call an agent, I want you to understand that when their mouth is moving, they're lying. Okay? Just assume that. And I'm going to tell you that that's not true about all of them. There's a few that they're golden. They're decent golden people, but those are few and far between. A lot of these agents are giant agents, and they have what I call conflicts of interest. They shouldn't be agents, to be honest with you, because they've got their own trucks out there leased to Landstar with their own drivers in them. And if they don't have that, they've got guys that own multi-unit fleets. Owner-operator might own 5 or 10 trucks and have drivers in them. And he's giving kickbacks to those agents. And so when their trucks are too busy, the ones they normally deal with, the ones they get kickbacks from, or their own trucks are too busy, that's when they're nice to you and they're sweet talking to you and they're blowing sugar kisses up your rear end. Okay? But the way you get around their lies is you make sure they send it to you in writing. And I never had a problem with a Landstar agent not sending me something in writing. The rate, the bonuses, everything. You want every last penny that they promise you on the phone to be on that rate sheet. And as long as it is, you're okay. Not in an email saying, yeah, I'll give you this. Even though Landstar will hold their feet to the fire on an email. They won't on a text, but they certainly will on an email. But when it's on the rate sheet, there's no disputing it, okay? You're going to get paid that amount of money. Also, though, you have to be careful. I'll get into that later. That's the bad about Landstar. Let's stay with the good. I love the load board because I could get on there and figure out where I was going. I could call these agents and talk to them, and I could negotiate rates. I'm saying, hey, I'm stuck up here in Seattle, and I want to go back down towards Phoenix. I'll be happy to drop that load off for you along the way in St. George, but don't you think, I'll pick up the load for them in Spokane and go to St. George with it. I'll bobtail, or I'll go empty over to Spokane. But I said, don't you think you could call an agent and you could do this? You can say, hey, don't you think I need a little more than $125 a mile? Because the rates are cheap coming out of Washington. I need something extra. How about a higher fuel surcharge? And some of them are balk. Well, we can't. They don't like us doing that. Yada yada yada. What you don't want to do is get them to give you extra stop pay when there's not an extra stop, because he gets his 38% of that, or whatever it was, 33%, and you only get 67% of that. Or Landstar gets their cut and he gets his. You want the accessorials that he adds on for extra money to be like in a fuel surcharge, because you get 100% of that. And also, I forgot what it was, but you get 100% of I think it's unload pay. So if you assist in the unload, he could say, well, are you unloading it? I go, no, but I'm assisting because I'm standing there with a clipboard. And I negotiated that anytime I went to Costco. You know why? Because Costco makes me stand there while they unload my truck. And that's BS. I have to, okay, so I have to stand there? Well, I'm assisting you, so I'm getting paid to assist with this unload. So, get them to throw an extra $100 or $200 on it. You can get them to do that. And some of the agents were really decent. I had an agent where I was dispatched to a load in Phoenix where I lived on a Sunday night. And it's important that I get this load because it's going where I want it to go, right? Well, I get there, the load's not ready, and they say it won't be ready for 2 or 3 days. This is the only agent I dealt with that promised me money, that I didn't put it in writing, that kept his word. He goes, John, I'm going to send you $400. And by the way, my real name is John. My middle name is Henry. That's why people call me Hank. So if you hear me saying John, that's why. He says, I'm gonna send you $400. All right. for your time and your effort. And sure enough, that agent sent me that money. Now, I had another agent where I went to a Frito-Lay in Oregon, and I was bringing it back to a Kroger warehouse, the Fry's Food, but Kroger warehouse in Phoenix. I was at that food warehouse for almost 10 hours. These are jerks that made me, when I got I was in line for 40 minutes to get into the gate because I picked the wrong line because I couldn't see which line I was supposed to be in because the signs were all blocked because of all the trucks and lines. They made me go through the entire facility, go out and come back around and get in line again. That took 2 hours. And because I was in the wrong line, they wouldn't take the 5 minutes it took to process me through. Right? Then I go, and I'm there for a total of 10 hours to get them to unload the damn Frito-Lay chips. And the guy promised me he would send me detention pay. And he even promised me in an email, because I asked him to send me an email while I was sitting there. But he never came through. So when an agent's mouth is moving, they're lying. And that's a thing you love about agents, because if you know that, then you know you're dealing with a great white shark. Sometimes that great white shark's going to bring you bags of money. Other times, they're going to steal your trailer. And I'll go into that when we talk about the bad things about Landstar. So I was always able to find freight with Landstar. If I was sitting, it was of choice. It wasn't because I couldn't find freight. Something would get me somewhere else where the money was. If there wasn't great paying freight, I remember like one of my first loads into Salt Lake City, I got stubborn and I said, I'm not taking that $1.50 a mile freight out of here. Well, after I sat for 24 hours, I ended up taking freight that hardly paid for fuel to get myself down to Southern California. So, I learned the hard way. What would I do differently? I would own my truck. There's no way I would lease to a company, and I would own my truck. And how can a guy with me that doesn't have a ton of money own my truck? Well, I'm going to own a truck that's a 1999 or older so that I can run paper logs. And how can I run paper logs if I'm with a big company? I'm not going to lease to a company. I'm going to have my own authority. That's what I would do differently. Because once I have my own authority, my own truck, I can get on the DAT load boards, and I can get on other load boards, and I can even get on Landstar's load board as an outside carrier. And that's something you can go look at right now, is outside carrier load board. That you could get access to that now. You're not going to be able to see the Landstar BCO, which is what they call us, business capacity operators. You're not going to be able to see their load board, but you'll see the outside carrier load board. And there's some good loads on there. I used to look at that sometimes and go, can I get one of these loads? No, you're not an outside carrier. Oh, okay. All right. I would have at least $25,000 in the bank for maintenance only. Okay? Now, if my monthly nut at Landstar was $800 a month, just for being at Landstar, and not talking about my truck payment or anything else, but just my truck insurance, my plate, yada, 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 yada. You got to figure it's going to be $1,600 a month to have your own authority, and just to be safe, call it $2,000. Why is it going to be $2,000? Well, it's going to be $2,000 because it's going to be $2,000 a year for your plate. It's going to be $18,000 a year for your insurance, because now you're not just getting you have to have carrier insurance. You're not just a truck that's leased with a carrier that has their overall umbrella policy. No, you're your own carrier now. And you're going to be smart. You're going to pay a monthly fee to somebody like the owner-operator, Independent Owner-Operators Association, or another service that makes sure that you're in a drug consortium, that you're in a gosh doggone it, I forgot to bring that up to people the other day on the news. We're all gonna have to be registering for the drug January of 2020, all CDL holders will have to register with the federal government, the DOT, for the clearinghouse, which is where all companies will have to go and check your name in that database to make sure that you don't have any positive drug results or DUIs or anything like that. Anyway, don't let me go down there. I have to do a show on that. Okay, but just figure it's going to be $2,000 a month if you have your own authority. So it's not like it's going to be cheaper, but you're going to get 100% of what you get when you go to DAT. You're not going to go to DAT and say, call your carrier and say, can you guys get me this load that's paying $2 a mile? And then they're going to say, sure, John, and they're going to take 25% of it. There's 50 cents off the top right there. That 50 cents is going to pay the extra money you pay for all your insurance and stuff each month. You're going to pay a service to make sure all your paperwork's and your permits, everything you need, because you need so many permits. You need to pay somebody to do that for you now. And there's services that do it. The same thing that Landstar would do is they send you a big permit book and they would continually update your permits. Because so many states need a liquor permit, for example. Nevada requires you, if you do any type of wide loads or flatbed stuff, you got to have a permit to have the yellow light that flashes on top. That's what Nevada wants. But there's owner operator, services that do that for you, and they file your IFTA taxes monthly for you. So they just send you a bill. You just make sure you pay that bill. So $25,000 in the bank for maintenance only. $15,000 in cash on top of that for expenses that come up that are unrelated to maintenance. Well, what's that going to be, John? Well, that could be anything. What if you get a $2,000 overweight ticket? Well, I won't get that. All right. What if you get a $1,000 speeding ticket because they clocked the wrong truck? Well, I won't get. You might. What happens if there's an emergency at home and you're 3,000 miles away and somebody, I don't know, anything could happen that could ruin your business. You have a loved one that needs your help. Anything. Have that cash. So how much is that? Well, that's a lot. Let's put it that way. It's $40,000. So, but you can save $40,000 in a year if you work hard. So don't act like it's the end of the world when I say that number. $25,000 in credit. I say that especially if my truck is financed. Why do I say that? Well, because I got $25,000 in maintenance in cash, right? $25,000 in credit if my truck's financed. Well, I'm going to be taking some of that $25,000 for maintenance or $15,000 for unrelated expenses to pay my truck's payment while my truck, or maybe a catastrophic breakdown. I don't want to deplete my maintenance account completely. I need another engine. It could be any reason, but you need to have a line of credit that you never use, and if you do use it, you need to replenish it right away. I'd also be a member of a towing service and roadside service, like the AAAs for trucks. It's where you can just call a number nationwide, and they get you a tire guy out right away. They get a tow truck out right away. They get you this is something that's worth paying for on a monthly basis. And like I said, I'd have my own authority, and I'd be on paper logs. There's no doubt in my mind that I know that I did some things that I could have done, completely differently. But it doesn't mean that there's a I don't know how to. Let me go back here and show you this here. Let me go back here and show you this one here, real quick here. All right. All right. What I hated about Landstar, um, the load board, which I said I loved. The load board is also full of lies. Okay, there are agents that put loads on the load board that they get from third parties like C.H. Robinson or DAT or other big brokers. You know, and you can tell by looking at the load board whether it's an agent's load or it's a broker load. But they'll put them on there just to create a bidding war, and you know it's true, especially if it's out kind of far. What they'll do is they'll put it on there at a super low rate, and you'll call and try to negotiate it up, and then another truck will call and undercut you, and they'll cancel that load that they put you on, and they'll tell you it's been canceled, and there's no way for you to verify it. They're full of shit. They cancel loads on you because they get other trucks that do them cheaper sometimes. It's hard for them to do that on an internal load with a Landstar load because Landstar can see those loads. So they have to be more careful about doing that. So the load board also has lies on it. So they'll put a load that they say is paying $3 or $4 a mile, and typically it'll be a broker load. And even if it's a load that they know has already been fulfilled, they'll still put it on the board so that you'll call them, and then they'll try to switch you. Because it's hard to find trucks sometimes. Because I'll be honest with you, the agents call you all the time saying, hey, are you available for this, available for that? It's hard because they want to make money, and especially when they don't have their own Landstar created Landstar agent freight, that's broker freight, and they need to make some money that week. And they can see where your truck is on their application on a map. And so they call you and they say, hey, do you want to get this load? It's a broker load. Sometimes they'll put loads on there just to get you to call them so they can do the bait and switch. And I hate that stuff. And you know it is. You know what's going on. You start to figure it out. You'll talk to some agents that'll tell you the truth, too. They'll tell you about this stuff. I talked to some agents that I'll tell you where I went, where I just totally lost it with an agent. And I told him to get effed, but I wasn't nice about it like that. He goes, well, my dad and I own this agency, and we could just call Landstar and have your lease canceled. I'm like, you go ahead, you piece of crap, because I'm going to make sure the CEO of Landstar knows what a piece of crap you are because of what you did. And I'll tell you what they did. What they did was I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, dropping off a trailer for Home Depot. It was just a drop and hook. I got my empty trailer, and then I was supposed to go pick up a load of, basically, I think it was plastic shelving, super light but big, bulky, and it was supposed to go over to the Costco distribution center, I think, in somewhere down in Southern California. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was in Southern California. I think it was in San Bernardino. But what it was they had called me. This is one of the times they called me, right? I was in the neighborhood. And they said, well, you need to be there by 3 or whatever the time was in the afternoon. And I said, well, no, there's no way I can be there by 3. I can't get there till like 6 or 7 tonight. And I think what it was is I was out of hours and I had to take 10. And this was early in the morning. But the place wasn't that far away from where I was at, but I was about to run out. Anyway, and if I got it that late, because I had an appointment time to, supposedly there was an appointment to get it there, which I thought was weird because I thought it was a live unload because there was an appointment time. But I called them back up and I said, listen, it says there's an appointment. And I won't be able to make that appointment. If you can change the appointment, and it's okay with you guys, go ahead and put me on that load, and I'll be happy to do it. And they said, "Oh, sure. Let me see." He called me back. He goes, "Yep, we changed your appointment, and now it's a drop and hook." And I'm like, "Okay, that's weird because it was a live unload." And so I called back and I said, "You got to put that in writing." He goes, what are you saying? What do you mean? I go, you got to put it's a drop and hook in writing. You got to send me something on an email, and I want it on the actual rate sheet, drop and hook. I got a rate sheet back, confirmation back, in less than an hour. It said it was a drop and hook and nothing about an appointment. And it was a window to do the drop and hook. I drove there. I got the load. I went there. I made the window. And when I got to security, they said, well, you're supposed to be here yesterday at 3 p.m. What happened? I'm like, no, they were supposed to redo it. It's a drop and hook now. And I showed them my rate sheet on my phone. And they said, no, this is a live unload. And I said, okay, well, when can you get to me? This is on a Friday. I'll never forget it. It's on a Friday. And they go, I still remember hearing the girl talk through the phone. The security guard didn't tell me. I heard the lady talking through the phone. It'll be next Tuesday at like 4 p.m. I'm like, what? Well, it's that or he can just drop the trailer. I go, okay, I'll drop the trailer. Just tell me where the empties are. That's what's supposed to be happening. And she goes, okay. And I dropped the trailer. As soon as I dropped the trailer, the load hostler, the yard hostler was there right behind me to take the trailer away, which was weird for something he wasn't going to get unloaded until Tuesday. And I couldn't find an empty Landstar trailer anywhere. So what it came down to was this agent stole my trailer and either required me to sit there for 5 days or 4 days while it was unloaded, or anything to get that load there, though. That's all he cared about because that's how he got paid. So they stole my trailer. This leads me to the trailer department. I will never have anything good to say about the trailer department in Landstar. While it is run by a gentleman who is very nice and very professional, he has total cunnies working for him. And when I say cunnies, I want you to rearrange those letters and add a T. And get rid of a Y. Because I am telling you, they are cunnies in that department. There's a really nice girl, and I'm just going to say she's black because she sounds like she's black, who really does her job really well and will always answer your question. But you know you're dealing with a cunny when you call up and you say to them, I need to get on the list because I need a trailer. And they go, all right, well, you're on the list as of yada, yada, yada. Landstar's policy is that you don't wait more than 1 or 2 days, 24, 48 hours. I called her up the next day. I bobtailed from Southern California back to Phoenix. Okay, I call her up on Monday. They're off on the weekend. They're gone after 5 p.m. These departments in Landstar keep bankers' hours, all right? So I call her up, and I'm like, hi, do you know when my trailer? I have no idea. I go, so, and this isn't the first time this has happened, by the way. This is the exact same conversation I had with them when I got dispatched on my first trailer after orientation. I said, hi. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was on the list for the trailer. I go, do you have an idea what the worst case scenario will be? Oh, I have no idea. I go, okay, so a week? I have no idea. So it could be a month. I have no idea, sir. I go, so it could be a year then before I get a trailer. Is that what you're saying? You have no idea. No, sir, I don't have any idea. And just hung up on me. That cunny did that same exact thing to me when I would call there for the very first time for a trailer. And both times I ended up having to be on the phone with the director, and I got a trailer within a day. But there's some people in that trailer department, and not just one. There's a guy in there too. They are not nice people. And they blame it, they're under a lot of stress. Okay, well, so am I. So everybody is. It's called work for a reason. All right? That leads me to attitudes. A lot of people with a lot of bad attitudes at Landstar. And they always try to throw it back on you. Well, you're running a business, right? Well, you're responsible for that. Okay, let me tell you some of the things they do. Number one, when you get to Landstar and you lease on, you'll always be looking for a decent trailer, and you'll be hating the idea of doing a drop and hook because of this. Here's what happens. Landstar screws themselves on this. What happens is, if you write up, here's what happened to me. I wrote up a single clearance light on the passenger side on the rear of the trailer at the top. A little LED red light was out. I wrote that up. I was nice, and I wrote it up. And it wasn't an out of service violation. It was just noticed by me, and I dropped it kindly enough at a Landstar approved trailer repair facility. And then I got a different Landstar trailer. And I knew this was going to happen. This was pre-planned, and it had something to do with about the inspection on the trailer being out. Well, I go to get a load. I'm talking like a week later, after already doing a couple different loads, and the system won't let the agent put the load on me because I've been locked out. And the reason I've been locked out is because I didn't send Landstar a repair receipt for the trailer with the LED that was out. I didn't send. I dared not to send a receipt in or proof that the trailer had been repaired. And I explained to the lady, I go, well, I dropped that trailer at a Landstar approved trailer repair facility. You'll need to contact them to find out what happened. I wrote up a post-trip inspection on my little ELD on the phone, and I was kind enough to tell you that there was a light that needed to be replaced. Now it's between you and your repair facility. I'm no longer in possession of the trailer. So what happens is, that happens with everything maintenance-wise with these trailers. You'll get a trailer, and they have these inspection dates, and Landstar wants them inspected every 3 months, right, or every whatever it is that they require. And if it's not in that inspection date, and you don't go get an inspection, they'll block your account from being able to get more loads. Well, what they expect you to do, without getting paid, or they'll say, oh, no, we give you $25 if you get it inspected. You could spend all day waiting at a Petro or wherever it is they want to have it inspected. They have accounts for Landstar inspections to get their little sticker. You could spend hours waiting to get that trailer inspected. Now, if there's something wrong with it, God help you, you'll spend hours or days waiting on that trailer to be fixed. So what guys do is they look for a drop and hook load, and they get rid of that trailer when it's broken, and they don't tell Landstar. And so what I started doing was I started calling the trailer utilization department, not trailer utilization, maintenance, and I used to tell them, I go, listen, this trailer located at such and such has all this stuff wrong with it. She goes, well, how come you didn't write it up? Well, I go, well, I never wrote it up because I never took possession of the trailer because of all the stuff that's wrong with it. And in other words, I was trying to get them to do their maintenance on the trailers. If they just had half the drivers do that, they wouldn't have any problem keeping the trailers maintained. But what it is they actually motivate you to not find problems with the trailer. So you're always looking for a brand new trailer because there's not going to be any problems with a brand new trailer. Because as soon as there's a problem with the trailer, they don't want to pay you for your services to get their trailer repaired. And it is their trailer and their responsibility. So my thing was, I couldn't write anything up because then it'd end up blocking me at the most inconvenient times. And what happens if I'm getting an agent to put me on a load on a Saturday and those fools aren't back until Monday? No, they create that problem for themselves. And I've actually had to call maintenance at night for Landstar. They have somebody answer the phone 24 hours a day. I had brakes locked up on a trailer once. Went to get the trailer that they assigned me. Trailer wouldn't move, even though I had it aired up for over an hour. And the lady I called was accusing me of doing something to it at Landstar. Just a complete attitude. Another reason you'll get blocked from getting loads, and you'll be out of the system, and an agent will try to put a load on you, might be because you didn't finish a little education class, or there was an issue with a log, and you didn't even know there was an issue with a log. Nobody sent you an email, not even a frickin' email, to tell you, call the log department. And so you'll be blocked, and you have to deal with that to get rid of it. Another huge bad thing I hated was ELDs, which goes to why I want a 1999 or older truck, my own authority, and to be on paper. Because sometimes I decided to deadhead back to where I was going, and Landstar doesn't want you deadheading more than 2 hours. Even if you're going back to your own yard, You're not on a dispatch. You're not going back towards a load. You're going back to take your time off or whatever. Let's say I'm in Las Vegas and I want to drive deadhead 6 hours. I drop a load in Vegas and I want to deadhead 6 hours to Phoenix, right? And I want to do that under personal conveyance. I'm taking my truck back to my yard. I'm empty. I'm not advancing towards a load or for any other business reasons. It's all for personal reasons. I just want to go home. Well, they don't want to let you do that. They want to make you run under your hours. The logs department will miss that kind of thing continually. And by the way, sometimes you just unplug the ELD and run, and logs will never catch that. It's really weird. But then they'll hit you with a, you moved your truck from one side of a truck stop to another, and now you have to be, they won't, and you didn't reset for 10 hours. And I'm like, yeah, but it didn't show a violation on my side. Well, it does on ours. Okay, whatever. But the logs department they had their heads up their butts. Anyway, also, there's a ton of fees at Landstar that you don't know about, and they don't tell you about in advance. And a lot of those fees are surprise fees that they backcharge you every few months. And I'll go into that at a later date. If you have any questions, we can look at one of my statements or something. This thing is getting too long, so I want to get to the next. I guess, I put this slide up because I wanted to ask about you. Are you an experienced owner-operator? Have you ever been an owner-operator at Landstar? Have you ever been an owner-operator leased to a company anywhere? I've heard good things about Schneider because they're similar to Landstar. They have a load board. Believe it or not, Schneider. I've actually talked to guys that are on the load board at Schneider. And they have fast trucks. They don't have a company speed limit, and they're doing their own thing. There's another company that only takes like 10%. And it gives you 90%. But I can't remember their name. Another good thing about Landstar, by the way, is if you've never done flatbed and you're interested in doing that, you can go take the class, the load securement class, at Landstar in Dallas, and then you get a drop deck from them, and they'll help you fully equip it, by the way, and you can start doing platform work. Or it's best to get like a 53-foot drop deck. If you enjoy doing that kind of thing, Landstar is a good place to do that. So let's not slam them completely. Anyway, are you a new driver? Just getting into it? If you are, I'm going to recommend that you drive for at least a year before you think about buying a truck. Unless you're super entrepreneurial and you're super business savvy and you've had other very successful businesses, you don't want to be learning two skills at once. I'm a super accomplished driver. I think I'm a really excellent driver. But and I'm always learning, and I think my attitude of always learning and being able to learn from even new drivers and always being able to learn something new contributes to my being a very good, safe driver. But I am not an experienced business owner. So there was a learning curve there, and there was a lot of stress involved. I've had several businesses in the past. I had a great handyman business in Las Vegas for over 5 years. It wasn't until after my divorce and that I started ignoring it that I ran it into the ground, but it didn't bankrupt me or anything. I just closed it. I had my little ad in the yellow pages, had contracts with different banks. I was doing a lot of the foreclosure cleanouts and stuff, and handyman remodels. And anyway, I've got experience in HVAC and refrigeration, and so I enjoyed that. So I've got an entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't have tons of experience. So you're going to become a truck driver and learn a bit, become a businessman. That's two things that's hard to do at once. The thing I wanted to say is this drive right here, where you see me driving, this is this is south of Portland in July, late July. I'm northbound on I-5 in my truck while I'm leased to Landstar. And I will tell you something that I will never forget this drive. This is me driving with a very light IKEA load from San Diego up into Seattle. It was actually Puyallup where I delivered, I believe. But that's me going over the bridge on the water there. I think that's the Willamette. Is that the Willamette River or the? I'm not sure where that. That's not the big river. But this is at sunset, headed. That's kind of facing west there. But this drive on that day, that afternoon up I-5 in the summertime with not a cloud in the sky, I've been driving for over 30 years. And the music that you heard with this at the opening was the music that was coming over the speakers. And I had both windows down. And this was the absolute most beautiful, most peaceful, my truck is running smooth. There's not a single vibration. There's not a pull to the left or the right. The weather is perfect. The load is not too heavy. The music is great. I'm healthy. I'm feeling good and blessed. This is one of the most peaceful drives I've ever experienced as a truck driver. One of the most peaceful days. One of the most inspiring days of my life. It's a day I'll never forget. And that's hard to come by when you do it day in and day out, folks. And I don't mean to dramatize this, but it really, truly was one of the pinnacles of driving. And it's just up by 5. And then I go and beat it just a few weeks later by taking a load out of Phoenix coming to Seattle, and I end up going through Northern California because I had a delivery. It wasn't to Seattle; it was to Eugene, Oregon. But I had a drop off in Klamath Falls, so I wake up near Klamath Falls, and I drive from Klamath Falls up through Klamath Falls, up through those mountains, to the east of I-5 in Oregon. And then I approached I-5 around the same time of day as this video you're looking at right now. On that drive, as I approach I-5, getting close to where I was going to unload, and going through those mountains in the beautiful, beautiful mountains in Oregon from Klamath Falls. It was I don't know how to. I'm actually going to show it to you because it was such a beautiful drive on those roads. It was just absolutely gorgeous. I want you to see where I'm talking about. All right, so here I am, Klamath Falls, right? And I drive along the upper Klamath Lake here, which in itself just started the day off amazing, right? And I drive up here, and my destination is Eugene. This drive from Klamath Falls over here across 59, what is that? Is that 58? Yeah, 58. Across 58. That and then into 50. Is that 58 to 50 or is it still 58? I can't read. I'm going blind. But across this road here, that was one of the most beautiful. The trees were just starting to turn, so it wasn't like full on turn, but it was during the week. It wasn't on a weekend, and it was just an absolutely gorgeous drive. So. And I go up here, and then I do my delivery in Eugene, and then I still remember driving empty back up to Seattle. No, you know what? It wasn't just a month later. The first drive was July. This was in October, so it was starting to turn quite a bit. But it was absolutely gorgeous, folks, and I just loved it. And So not only was I rewarded with this beautiful day that summer while leased to Landstar, then just a couple of months later, I was rewarded with another beautiful, absolutely gorgeous day. The kind of days and drives that stick with you for a long, long time. And may every day for you be that way. I really mean that. And I hope that you can learn from my mistakes. Before I let you go, I'll tell you something that happened to me after I picked up my truck in Las Vegas from Lone Mountain Truck Leasing, and I bobtailed home, and then I bobtailed up to Reno. It was after my second day of orientation, and they let me stay in the hotel a third night because there was no trailer available, and that was really nice of them, right? Well, I had noticed that day, I had taken my dog with me, and they were taking the whole class out to lunch, which was really nice, but I didn't want to do that. I spent lunch with my dog. Because she's waiting for me in the truck. Well, anyway, I noticed there was a coolant leak out of a hose underneath the engine. Well, I guess that the stress of buying a new truck and changing jobs and everything had just gotten to me. And I still remember how stress can affect you so negatively, because it took me hours, I'm talking like 3 or 4 hours, to go to the AutoZone to get some clamps, to clamp down a loose hose that the factory clamp had loosened up on, and to stop the leak. And that's all it was a loose clamp. There was one other thing that went wrong with the truck, but I fixed it myself, and everybody else was saying, why don't you just take it to Freightliner, and because Freightliner would have charged me $1,000 to do this. The heater core was leaking when I got the truck, and those putzes at Lone Mountain Truck Leasing had stuck. I wondered why they had put air fresheners in each and every air conditioning vent, because as soon as I pulled them out, after I left Las Vegas, I could smell the coolant coming from the heater core. So when I got to Phoenix, this is something I did before I went down to up to my orientation. And so I went and got a heater core from Freightliner. It cost like $85 for a kit, and I cut the other one out of there because you have to cut it. And then I pulled it out. There's a drain plug on the side of the block. I drained all the coolant into a 5-gallon. It's a 2 5-gallon buckets that I bought from Walmart, and I didn't even bother draining the radiator. And then I replaced the heater core, and it took me about 3 hours because I'd never done it before. I could probably do it in half that time now that I know how to do it. And then replaced the coolant, buttoned it all up, and then that's why I had a coolant leak. But I remember I was so stressed out that the point of the story is I was so stressed out that something as simple as stopping a coolant leak from a bad hose clamp took me a couple of hours. And so my point is, be ready for stress and how it will affect your performance negatively and your judgment negatively. I believe that stress played a big role in how I misdiagnosed my truck's mechanical problem about the belt, and how I thought it was something that somebody else had done before, and my thinking was so muddled that I thought I had to modify the belt to make it to work. It was truly muddled thinking. But by this time that you're seeing here, I things like that had cleared up, and I had felt so much better. Anyway, I know that I know now the mistakes that I made, and that's the way it is, folks. Thanks so much for joining me on this long rambling Landstar live broadcast. Please forgive me for the terrible technical difficulties. And if there has been anybody asking questions on the live part, I've had a problem with my browser the entire time I've been talking, and I've just been hoping that it's still broadcasting the second time. yeah, it's not been working right for me. But maybe next time I'll be able to join the live chat. Thank you so much for stopping by, and please be safe, and may you have many, many, many enjoyable driving days. And always remember, folks, that every car out there, every single car you're looking at, and even the trucks, have family members and close friends of yours inside of them. So drive very much like that's the truth. Just imagine every single vehicle out there has somebody very close to you in it. And that's how you're going to drive. All right, folks, we'll leave you with a little journey. May peace be with you.